Hey Sainers, welcome back to the Saints TV YouTube channel. Hope you're all having a great week so far. The draft is still 2 months away, but I thought it'd be a good time to break up the trade talk videos and get my good friend Pom on to chat draft. He is the draft guru, the man that knows all in the way of draft with every club. The clubs love him. We love him, and it's good to have you on, mate. So thanks for jumping on for a chat.
My pleasure to be on. I'm looking forward to this. It's nice to escape Carlton, so I'm excited.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of talk in the Saints world in terms of draft, and you're pretty well connected in the Saints front. You've been a big advocate of what we've done the last couple of years. You spoke to some of our draftees, namely Mateus Filippo, who you talked up big time in. You've basically said he's going to win the next couple of Brownlows when he's getting his 60, 70 games under his belt. So we're very excited for him. But this year is a big topic, namely because of Josh Battle and what happens there. That's kind of where we're at, is what compensation is going to look like, what we can do with that. We've backed out of Dan Houston, which was a big talking point last week. So that draft pick that we get for Battle looks like we're going to invest in youth, which I think is absolutely the way we need to go. But I know you've done your draft predictors. You do that every year. You do them very early. You do the draft watch pretty much throughout the season, don't you? You're juggling in-season football with Carlton, and then you're looking at the next gen stars.
Yeah, probably the hardest to do as well, because I also predict trades, so you open yourself up to the door of abuse, which is always good fun. But yeah, I mean, I'm hot on what Saints done. I know a lot of people say your list is average, the opposition fans, but I actually think Saints is one of the more balanced lists in the AFL, and I'm really excited. I think this draft and next year are two real big cornerstones that could catapult you guys into the window very quickly. So I'm excited about this one because I think Saints is quite an easy one to do. I think your needs are quite obvious, where other clubs are a little bit more ambiguous, let's say.
Yeah, and yeah, we talk about those needs. You look at the list, like you said, it is very balanced. And I know you watch St Kilda a lot more than sort of, I guess, the other neutral supporters that I know. So you're pretty educated on where we're at. Backline is well sorted. I think forward line's got potential, as we showed in the back half of the year, kicking some big scores. But it's always been the midfield. It's always been, do they have the A-grade talent? Where's the Paddy Cripps? Where's the Bont? The Lockie Neals? Who's the, Jack Steele is a very, very, very good player, very consistent player. But where's that, the icing on the cake? And we don't have that at the moment, but we're starting to draft in that direction with Filippo. I think Hunter Clark's been undervalued in his career. I mean, he's been injured, but he's looking very good. But it's this draft now, particularly because we're looking like, I don't want to jump the gun, but we should have 2 picks inside the top 10, 11. I'm hoping with the Josh Battle compensation. I think we can do a hypothetical on if we don't get that, what it might look like. I think Saints fans will find that quite interesting. But for the sake of the video, let's talk about if we do get that compensation within the top 10, what that might look like.
Yeah, well, I mean, currently you've got pick 8. So if you got pick 9, which would be like band 1 compensation, obviously it's really hard to predict because the AFL say there's a rule, but I think this rule is more, there's a rule, but there isn't a rule, but we'll tell you there is. Yeah. But you're in a real good position because I think this draft is packed. In my opinion, this is the first time we haven't had a standout pick 1. So I think potentially you've got 15 names that could be pick 1 when we redraft this in 10 years. It's not like the Dacos draft where it was 2 people max.
Yeah.
So pick 8, Sam Lalaw, let's talk about him. I think that's the name that's hotly on all of you guys and goes his list. And quite rightly so. This guy is well-rounded. He's versatile. He can get forward and kick snags. He's definitely got that point of difference with his pace and his work around stoppage. But also, 187 is that ability to be really strong in the clutches. So a bull-like type player, which you've probably got one of the best players in the league to learn off, Jack Steele. That's an unforgotten art of list building, having someone he can imprint, learn off, someone he can work with every day. So Lalaw, is definitely in the mix, but also some sliders. Sid Draper, Finn O'Sullivan, he's been in and out of the year with thumb and finger injuries. Someone's going to slide out of that top 5. So pick 8 could be that sexy little pick where someone makes a mistake. And Sid Draper and Finn O'Sullivan are 2 names that are constantly talked about that no one can agree on. They're either 1 or 5, 6, 7.
Yeah, Sid Draper's the one that was kind of the first player that caught my eye, and I thought that's pretty much everything we need in a midfielder. But then as, the weeks go on, they start to talk about the predictions, and he's looking like he's top 5, like you said, which from our perspective is out of reach. I always thought, was there a chance that we could offer up those, 8 and 9 or whatever to a North or to a Richmond and push up the draft, push up the order a little bit to get that one player? But then you're sacrificing 2 draft picks. So that's probably not the way we would go about it. We were linked to, I think it was a trainer as well. Is he the utility?
So you've got the key defender there. I think the one risk here with you guys is you're probably in a great position. Your backline's sorted. He has had concussion issues, which this is something I've been talking about in my draft. North definitely want a key defender. But if you take him too early and let's say he goes Paddy McCartin and has concussion issues, everyone's going to look back at this draft as a mistake. So I think he may slide. I don't think, though, looking at your list, a key defender is a priority. I think that could be something that you look at with pick 24, where there is a few key defenders if you want to go that route and bring him in and learn from Cal Wilkie, who I think Cal Wilkie might be the best teacher in the game because he's kind of come from nowhere through hard work, which is probably how you become a superstar.
Yeah, spot on. We've lost Josh Battle, which is huge, but I've always thought that it's been more the system in the backline, more so than the individual talent of the players, and Ross has always been like that. So there's no, Ross could grab a bloke off the street and make him centre half back for a season, and I reckon we'd still be top 6 for points against, you know what I mean? So I don't, as much as we love Battle, if we do get the compo that we want and we draft a good player like a Draper or a Lawler, someone like that, I think we'd be pretty happy with that. So are we saying for 8, it would be Lawler if he's available, hypothetically?
Yeah, 100%. And then looking at Sauce, he likes to double up. When Sauce has had picks close to each other, he likes to put eggs in his basket and covering loads of Sauce drafts. I'm probably just outside of his sons, a Sauce expert. Pick 9, I could see Murphy Reed strikes me as a Sauce player and a Ross player because this guy is probably the most consistent player in the draft. So if you've got Big Sam and you pair him with Murphy, you've probably got your guarantee there. Murphy's going to be that kind of possession getter, consistent. He's got a very high floor where Sam's got probably the higher ceiling. Sauce likes his high floor players, and I think there's rumours that you get in McRae, which will probably be your last pick you'll use. Dogs won't stand in his way. He's probably the perfect tutor for Murphy Reed because Jack's probably the best we've had for 10 years at doing what he does. Murphy could learn from him. So I think that if you went 8, Sam, 9, Murphy Reed, suddenly you've got a real complete midfield, and that opens up 24 to be a bit experimental per se. Yeah,
and we'll go with 24 now. Experimental in, do we look at, is there any forwards that could be potentially available? I've always thought that we still haven't really fully locked that down with, kind of King being the lone hand. We're going to potentially lose Tim Membry. Sharman's there, Caminiti's there. But he might actually have to go back next season, Caminiti, to fill that Josh Battle role. So that leaves us a bit light in the front half. Is there a chance for that to be the case in the 20s, or is it more of a backman, like you said before?
I think pick 24 is probably the most interesting place to be in the draft because there is one guy that I've got my eye on, which I think everyone is kind of sleeping on, and that's the hybrid forward himself, Cooper Hines. And as often is the case in the AFL draft, if you play with a player who's top 5 and do the same role, no one cares about you anymore. And if you look at Cooper Hines and Harvey Langford, almost the same player, one's more marketable. So he's kind of the ugly sister of Cinderella here. But when you look at Cooper play, he's 190, he's strong through the core. I hate to use similarities, but there's a big Dustin Martin about him in the terms of he makes things happen. And this could be, I think, that area that when you watch Ross, how he likes to play, and you look at all the modern day teams, we're losing that two tall forwards. It's now becoming one key forward and then a couple
and
of
the hybrids.
Yeah, a couple of kind ofs. And then you look
Mitch
at the
Owens.
back. Yeah, and the back, it's happening the same. You have the one big ox, two interceptors. So that's the modern day transition game. Cooper, I think it's a shame you're losing memory, because I think the one thing he lacks is probably the knowledge of leading lanes. But I look at Cooper Hines and I think this guy here is the mistake. I think people are looking at Harvey, falling in love with him, and forgetting he's got a mate who does identical. And he's going to slide in that 20s. I think if you could get Sam, Murphy, Reed, Cooper in the first three picks, I think you've covered all holes.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I mean, obviously midfield is the priority. And with those two picks you mentioned, they're two very different players, which is important. You don't want to go just all eggs in the one basket. We said it at the start, but it seems like a very simple draft for us. You know, it's not one of those drafts where we should come out of it and feel like we got the wrong player, because there's so many right players. If we don't get the compensation for battle at 9, what does it then look like then? Does that completely change our strategy, or is it just we just get one less player in that top 10 and that's it?
Well, I mean, let's just say it's the end of the first, which is the media are fighting between 9 and 21 at the minute. So let's say it is 21. I mean, there's still plenty of options there. You could go, your Cooper Hines type player. You could go your Tom Gross. We know Sauce loves taking a punt. There is a guy who was top 5 last year that slid down, Christian Morales, as well, who's that burst type player from stoppage in that Paddy down mode, who's just had a poor year, really. And we know Sauce likes that. Sauce likes taking the punt. I wouldn't rule out as well, Stephen is a very shrewd operator. And I've been saying everyone's looking next year because you get the 2 future firsts to play with. I wouldn't be surprised that Sauce uses the ambiguity of your ladder predictor. And it's really hard to say if Saints will be a top 8 side or a bottom 8 side. I think that's general consensus. So Sauce has been known when he was at Carlton to use that to his advantage. So I reckon your future first this year, should you want to trade in the live draft, may come into play, because he famously did it with Adelaide, where it actually worked out. Carlton won that trade. And at the time, everyone was saying Carlton have given up pick 1. But Carlton jumped Adelaide that year. So we actually won that trade. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Stephen look at this and go, your Richmonds, your Norths, your Ports, your Brisbanes, who may think, oh, you know what, St Kilda will be bottom 4 next year. They might back themselves and say, okay, let's put your money where your mouth is. Let's swap picks. And I won't be surprised to see Sauce try and jump in. I could see you having 3 picks inside top 15 this year. I reckon Sauce will look at that. And if, say, Sid Draper falls to 5-6 before your pick, I wouldn't be surprised if that's a player he wants. That future first suddenly comes in. And he's bold. And that's one thing about Sauce. If he's got a player in mind, he'll do everything he can to get him.
Yeah. I don't mind that strategy. That was actually one that didn't occur to me, the future first. Because I do think that we're one of those teams that could quickly rise if we get everything right. I even think the back half of this year, minus the draft hand that we've got at our disposal, we're in a good place, in terms of the squad, in terms of the players that we've got. And if you look at the players that we've let go, that we're willing to trade, we're ready to make a move. Ross has had his 2 years of kind of understanding where the list is at, looking at the players at his disposal, the youth coming through as well. I think we can make a jump. Do you think if we nail this draft, based on what you've said and the players that we could potentially get, if we get those players, do you think we're one of those teams that is a watch for next season and beyond?
100%. I mean, I think what will happen is the AFL will see you've lost battle and they'll overvalue battles to your system. So straight away, the list managers will be like, this is a problem. But then they'll forget you didn't get a full year out of Max King. And for me, Max King is a Coleman medalist just waiting to happen. And it will happen. He's had injuries. I think you're definitely a top 8 side. When you've got, I always believe defense wins championships and you're hard to score against. And Josh Battle, in my humble opinion, I don't think is part of that. I think that's more system-based, like you said earlier, versus personnel-based. So I think adding a few little layers, giving Mr. Jack Steele a help, which Jack McRae instantly helps. We saw, always warn people, Tom Mitchell, when I did the Collingwood one with Swoop, I was like, he's a missing jigsaw piece that what he does, you can't buy, and it's undervalued. Jack McRae does that. It's undervalued. I think your midfield infinitely gets better with McRae and Sam Murphy coming in. They've got protection. They don't have to do it. So they're definitely one to watch. I'd be reluctant as a list manager to swap first with you. But there will be list managers who will be naive and thinking, St Kilda, bottom 6.
Yeah. We can't go to Dodoro anymore and knock on his door, can we? Just swap picks with Essendon.
Depends how much he's trained the new guy, to be honest. Saying St Kilda are a good mate of ours. But everyone wants to trade into this draft. It's quite funny that there's teams that want to trade into it because it's so deep in depth. But there's also teams that will want to spread their picks. And they're the ones you want to be worried of. If teams are willing to slide out of that top 10 to maximize later, I think that's where Sauce will pounce. But definitely, I wouldn't be surprised that Future First will be activated in a live trade, which I find fascinating because there's so many key defenders, so many key forwards in 10 to 20. Sauce might see someone and go, let's do it now, because next year he gets 2 futures anyway, so he can trade back should he need to.
And we've got, I mean, we've talked about the first round of the draft, which is obviously the most critical, but then beyond that, I think we've got Cole, who is an NGA, I believe, he's 190 defender, who's been quite good.
And Hoffman.
And then, and him, and also, is it Elwood Pickett as well as a father-son could potentially come into play. And he's been pretty good as well. So beyond that, what are our picks beyond the first round again? Remind me.
So currently you've got 8. You've got 24 and 43. So you've got a decent spread. Obviously they'll be pushed out once Brisbane cheat the system with their never-ending NGA.
God. Brisbane again. If they make a granny and then they get the Ashcroft again. God. Equalisation at work. It's going well.
It is, but I think a really exciting time for Sainters. And I think if you can get 2 mids and then maybe a hybrid, suddenly we're talking. I'm really bullish on the Saints. I know people downplay you guys, but I think it's a beautiful list and it's not far away. It's funny. People want stars, but in reality, clubs make stars. You don't buy stars in this game. And I think you've drafted and traded beautifully over the last 3 years.
Yeah, I think we've set ourselves up. We've had a poor record over the last 10 years, but we're starting to make amends in the last 3 or 4. I mean, the young group under that 22 bracket, I mean, Windy, Filippo, Naz, who else am I missing? Darcy Wilson's come into play. Hasty, Collard, we've signed on for another 3 years. Ari Shawmaker, who was in the 70s because people were worried about his attitude. I think he's going to be a player. I've probably missed a cut. Ollie Houghton hasn't debuted. So there's plenty. Oh, and Hugo Garcia, obviously, who was in, I think he was pick 50 odd or something, but he looks like an absolute jet. So there's a good core there. And if we get 2 or 3 more players to that sets us up, for the next 5 to 10 years.
And Max King's forgotten about. Like, people forget about him. Like, absolutely. He gets 60. He's a 60 goal a year player. Like, he is filthy good. filthy good.
Don't pump him up too much. It's going to trigger people watching this video, mate. They want him traded, all right? Some people want him traded for 2 firsts. He's worth 2 firsts, but he's not good, apparently, you know?
I will say this. I was a huge Charlie Curnow fan when he was injured, and I made that bold call, he'll win the next 2 Colemans, after he returned against you guys and kicked the screamer. And everyone said I was mental. You can see the talent. He just needs to stay fit. And when you're 200 centimeters and a kid, he's way too big for his body. Once he fills out, which he will do, you'll regret wanting to trade him. That guy is a 60, 70 goal player. He is filthy good. So stick by him, because he could be the difference between mediocre and winning the thing.
Yeah, I agree. Well, Pom, as always, I very much appreciate your time, mate. You've put a lot of work into this, not just with St Kilda, with every other club in the AFL. And for everyone watching, where can they find you? Where are you most active?
YouTube, you'll find me, Pommy in Oz. But I mean, I'm on all the socials. I'm usually the one bantering stupid ideas. So you'll see me, because I like a Twitter spat. So you'll definitely see me there.
Yeah, beautiful. Thanks, man. Thanks, everyone, for watching. If you agree, disagree, put it in the comments, create a discussion, and I'll see you soon. As always, go you mighty Saints.